Welcome to the third video in this series. In this part, I'm going to be making the storage crates. I'm using solid white oak, and I'm going to get started by just ripping a bunch of strips that will make up the corners of my crates. So I grabbed the last piece of white oak that I had, milled it up off screen, and now I'm going to start breaking it down. Instead of gluing two pieces together to join the corner, I decided to use my table saw and actually cut that 90-degree corner out of a solid piece. I ran that corner profile into long strips of wood, into the white oak, and so now I can go to my crosscut sled and cut to final dimension. The majority of the crate is made up of a woven wooden pattern. So now I have to go to my router table and run a groove that those woven wooden pieces will fit into. I think it's about a 1/16 of an inch. It was actually the smallest router bit that I have ever used. I'm using slip tendons to join the crate together, so it's back to my mortar cert to make those slots. You can begin to see now how thin the components of the crate are. I did that intentionally just to try and keep the weight down. My goal was to make these crates as light as possible. Off camera I had ran a groove from the bottom of the crate. Right here you can see just how little room I'm working with to fit all the joinery. I had to cut about 200 of these strips of white oak that will make up the woven element of the crate. I'm ripping them oversized a bit just so that I can go back and thickness them to the correct dimension. I don't have a drum sander and they're too thin to send through my thickness planer, so the only way that I was able to do that was with a shop-made thicknessing jig that works in conjunction with my jointer plane. This process took a while, but it was pretty satisfying. Anytime I get to use hand tools is fine with me. Now I'm going to get started on prepping all the stock for glue up and assembly. So just, getting final surfaces on all my parts and then squaring up all the components on my shooting board. The last bit of work I have to do is to mortise out some grooves for the bottom panel to fit into the corners. I wasn't able to get my router in there safely, so I figured I'd just break out my chisel and do it by hand. Just like with the back panel, I'm only going to glue up one side of this whole frame. That way I can take off the other side and slide in all of my woven elements. Before I glue the storage crates up, I need to make the bottom. And I figured if I'm putting in all this work and time and effort into these things, I should really make the bottom nice. So to achieve that, I'm going to make my own shop sawn veneers out of white oak. Basically, I'll just cut a bunch of veneers on the bandsaw and then glue those down to a substrate, which in this case is just going to be MDF. I'll cut that MDF to size, and that will make up the bottom of the crate. This is my process basically for cutting the shop sawn veneers. Cut the stock to length, and then I'll go to my bandsaw, cut the veneers on the bandsaw, and then I'll go to my joiner. I'll joint one edge, and then I'll go back to my bandsaw, cut another veneer, so I'll only have one bandsaw base on each veneer. I use this setup to achieve a nice jointed edge for the veneers. It works pretty well with the hold fast, it doesn't move around, and I get a really nice seam with this technique. After all the jointing's done, I'll tape the veneers together in the orientation that I want and then lay them down onto my substrate after I've put glue only on the substrate. If you glue the veneers instead of the substrate, your veneers are actually going to curl up and it's just going to be pretty hard to wrangle them back down, so always glue the substrate first. Once the veneers are laid down, it's ready to go into my vacuum bag for about an hour or so. I'll also link this vacuum system in the description. Now it's just a matter of cutting this panel to size. Now that the crate is all glued up, I can go ahead and begin to install the handles. I'm using a strip of wood to back up the holes I'm about to make, and I'm going to use some Danish cord that I had laying around to make up the handles. I'm going to thread the Danish cord through the holes I made, using a spring clamp to kind of hold it in place while I'm, weaving it around itself. I then use some super glue to kind of tack the ends into place up top. And then from there, I'm actually going to wrap those ends around with some waxed whipping twine. I think it just adds a little bit more of a design element, which is kind of cool, kind of more like DIY-ish, I think. After struggling a bit with this last knot on the handles, this will complete the project. Thanks for watching through all 3 videos. Hopefully I'm able to make some more videos like this soon, so I appreciate your time. Take care.